Hello, dear student. I welcome you once again to today's lesson as we proceed with Bible knowledge in Form 3. Today, as we proceed with the book of Isaiah, analyzing the book of Isaiah, we are now looking on chapter 7, verse 10 through 25, and we'll proceed from there. And today we're looking at the sign of Emmanuel. You can agree with me. Last time we were looking at the meeting between Ahaz and the prophet Isaiah. So God sent Isaiah to tell Ahaz about the impending conflict that was there, that was coming from Israel and Syria, to strengthen him, to strengthen his faith, to have faith on God alone, and to warn him of any alliance that he could make with the Assyrians. So we looked at that. But still more, it is a continuation of the same passage. That's where we are looking at the sign of Emmanuel. Be there and follow through up to the end. I am your teacher, W.A. Mawowa. Now, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to analyze deep the proto-Isaiah by looking at what happened on the sign of Emmanuel. What is it all about? We're going to encounter more on this one, the sign of Emmanuel. Remember, our main issue is to analyze the work of proto-Isaiah, but here we are at the stage where Isaiah is meeting with King Ahaz after that threat from Syria and Israel. So what is this sign of Emmanuel coming from? So let us proceed and see what happened. So on the sign of Emmanuel, remember the book that we are supposed to use whenever we are learning Bible knowledge. So for us to do better in everything, before we read every book, we have to see what the Good News Bible says. So I'm going to read the few verses from verse 10, chapter 7, verse 10. The Lord sent another message to Ahaz. Ask the Lord your God to give you a sign. It can be from deep in the world of the dead or from high up heaven. Ahaz answered, I will not ask for a sign. I refuse to put the Lord to the test. To that, Isaiah replied, Listen now, descendants of King David. It's bad enough for you to wear out the patience of people. Must you wear out God's patience too? Well then, the Lord himself will give you a sign. A young woman who is pregnant will have a son and will name him Emmanuel. Verse 15. By the time he is old enough to make his own decisions, people will be drinking milk and eating honey. Even before that time comes, the lands of those two kings who terrify you will be deserted. So I have stopped on verse 16. You can proceed from verse 16 and see what the story says up to verse 25. But now, within that context, what do we have in that context? Now, before we go deeper, now the first thing is to define the word sign. We have here the sign of Emmanuel. What is a sign? So this is an event that has a special meaning, an event that has got a special meaning. That's a sign. So the Lord's message to King Ahaz. So here it says, ask the Lord your God to give you a sign. It can be from deep in the world of the dead or from high up heaven. We have just read that one to say, God, after the first meeting between Isaiah and Ahaz, then Ahaz refused, did not believe, did not trust God. And God again sent Isaiah the second time. This time, he sent him to say, King Ahaz, please ask for a sign, any sign from the Lord to show that he is there to assist Judah, that Judah will stand the threats of Israel and Syria. So this is what the sign said. So the Lord sent message again to King Ahaz. So describe Ahaz's response to the message. We read that one. He said that he would not ask for a sign. He said that he refused to put the Lord to the test. So this is what Isaiah said there. Ahaz responded. He said, no, I will not put the Lord, I will not ask for a sign. I refuse to put God into test. So the reasons why he refused to ask for a sign, why did Ahaz refuse to ask for a sign? So he had already made an alliance with Assyria, and he did not want to put the Lord to test. So in this case, we see that the time Isaiah was coming to Ahaz, to meet Ahaz, it was the time when Ahaz has already asked for the Assyrian assistance against Syria and Israel. So then he said, I don't want to put God into test. What was the main reason why Ahaz refused to ask for a sign? He had already made the alliance with Assyria. So what was Isaiah's reaction to this response therefore? So he wondered if Ahaz wanted to wear out God's patience as well. So he said that the Lord himself would give Ahaz a sign. So there, after Ahaz refused to give a sign, to ask for a sign from God, to say, what is the sign that Judah is going to stand? He said, no, I'm not going to ask for a sign, for any sign. So Isaiah responded, he said, no, do you want to wear out God's patience too, as you can wear out people's patience? Therefore, God himself is going to give you a sign. That's what Isaiah responded. So what sign did the Lord give to Ahaz? So it was the sign of Emmanuel. That's our lesson today. We are looking at the sign of Emmanuel. But now, what does this word now, Emmanuel, mean? Now we have known where our lesson is centered. The sign of Emmanuel, God himself gave the sign of Emmanuel because Ahaz refused to ask for a proof, to ask for a sign that God is going to be with Judah. So what does this sign mean? The word Emmanuel, what does it mean? So it means God is with us. God is with us. So what's the significance, therefore, of this sign? What's the importance of this sign? So God would protect Judah from Syria and Israel. Remember, the sign is coming at a time when Judah is posed with a threat from the two countries, Syria and Israel. But God then is giving a sign to say, God is with us. Although there is this threat, God is with us. So the significance was that it meant that Judah would be protected. Why did Isaiah therefore give Ahaz the sign of Emmanuel? Basically, it was to assure the king, to assure Ahaz that God will protect his people, to assure Ahaz that God was with his people because of the promises that he had made to Abraham, to David, where he had also promised the people of the coming king, the future king. Now, relate the sign the Lord gave King Ahaz. So this is just like a summary. How did that message, how was it presented? Therefore, we say it to it that he said that a young man, a young pregnant woman will have a son and will name him Emmanuel. By the time he is old enough to make his own decisions, people will be drinking milk and eating honey. Even before that time comes, the lands of Israel and Syria will have been deserted. So look at that. So he presented that sign of Emmanuel to say a son will be born to a young pregnant woman. And before that young boy, young son before he is old enough, then people will be enjoying the freedom. Why? because by that time, the two threats that are there now, they will be not there. They will not be there. Their lands will be deserted. There will not be people there. God would have been intervened already. So that is the sign that how he presented it. So the meaning of the sign given to Ahaz before the child to be born grows up, there will be peace in Judah after the defeat of Syria and Israel. So before that child, that promised child, then Israel and Syria, then they will be deserted and people will live in peace in Judah. What was Ahaz's policy? So during that threat, what was his policy? What was his main target? His main aim was to make an alliance with the superpower Assyria. So what were the consequences of Ahaz's policy, or what prophecies were given in response to Ahaz's disobedience? So we see here, his policy was to be safe by being in the hands of the superpowers. To say, all right, if I make an alliance with the superpowers, I'll be safe. So that was his policy. But that policy had its consequences. What were they? God would whistle or signal for Egyptians to come like flies and the Assyrians like bees to fight in Judah, causing great damage in Judah. That is the consequence. The same Assyrians hired for assistance would destroy Judah. The destruction of Judah would cause desolation of the land. Then the fertile land would be changed to a country where only hunters would come and cattle would graze. So we see the consequences of falling into alliance. There will be disturbances in the land. Egypt, Assyria will be fighting in Judah, and the land will be in desolation. So those are the consequences. Now, how were the prophecies fulfilled of the upcoming dangers that Isaiah talked about, the dangers of falling into alliance with the Assyrians? So historically, what happened was that Ahaz's trust in Assyria made Judah a subject of Assyria and had to pay tribute to the king of Assyria. That one, historically, it happened. And also Syria was destroyed by Assyrian army in 732 BC, while Israel was fully destroyed in 721. So we see that Syria and Israel were totally ransacked. They were totally destroyed. And even in Israel, I already mentioned that all the people of Israel, they were taken to captive, to exile in Assyria, where they did not come back up to this day. That is historically. In 701 BC, Judah was severely damaged by Sennacherib's army of Assyria, by Sennacherib, the emperor of Assyria. And in 586 BC, Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians. So in 786, 785, that was now Judah. The people of Judah, they were taken to Babylon, and there they stayed for about 70 years and they came back. But the land of Judah now became desolate. So you can see historically the things happened just as the prophet Isaiah had said. But what were the respective symbols of the armies of Egypt and Assyria, as Isaiah talked about? When you read from verse 17 up to 25, the symbols there of the armies of Egypt and Syria. So Egypt is represented by the flies, Egypt, but Assyria, it is represented by this symbol, the bees. So which nation was referred to as Baba from the east? The Baba from the east, that one, it was referred to Assyria. So Judah suffered under Assyria. How did it suffer? Judah will lose independence already. We talked about that. They lost their independence. They were paying tribute as well to Assyria. So they lost their independence. They were looked after by the Assyrians, and they were paying heavy tribute. Now, everything that people do have the results. What were the results of this alliance? Ahaz's alliance with Assyria. Judah alliance with Assyria. What were the results? Judah lost its independence. Judah had to pay heavy tribute. Judah had opted pagan religion of the Assyrians. So we see there were dangers there of falling into that alliance because no independence, paying tribute, and accepting foreign culture, that is foreign religion. So who could this Emmanuel refer to? So in this lesson, we are looking at the sign of Emmanuel here, whereby God himself gave the sign of Emmanuel to say, God is going to be with the people of Judah, no matter the threats that are there. But who could this Emmanuel be? Because it was just mentioned that a young lady will have a son. Before that son becomes old enough to make his decisions, then Israel and Syria will not be there. But who is this Emmanuel? So possibly because we are doing the analysis, our main objective here is to analyze, to see in other angles the message of Isaiah. So who could this Emmanuel be? So we see here that possibly Hezekiah, Ahaz's son. By this time, Ahaz's wife was pregnant. So by the time when the message was given, possibly Ahaz's wife was pregnant. Therefore, that Ahaz's wife was referred to as a young lady. Yeah. Then the other option of Emmanuel would be the Messiah. So who would this Messiah be? A future king through whom God would eventually make his promise come true. By the term Messiah here, it doesn't directly mean Jesus. It means someone. A Messiah is someone who is sent by God to accomplish a certain mission. So that maybe could be a future king by that time. So they are looking for a future king who could come and rescue the people of Judah. And also, the same Emmanuel could mean Jesus. He was a descendant of King David, as promised, then through whom God had fulfilled all the promises he had made to his people. So you should understand there. In the analysis that we are making here, we are not going straight to say, Emmanuel is Jesus. No, no. Then we have failed to analyze. We need to really understand and go step by step. So that's why there are three options here. It could be Hezekiah, who was the son of King Ahaz, because by that time, the wife of Ahaz was pregnant. Maybe should be that Emmanuel. Or if not that one, then should refer to a future king through whom God was going to fulfill his promises. And maybe it should be Jesus because he was a descendant of David. Therefore, God would fulfill the promises he had made to his people. So these three options, they stand well to fit into this Messiah who is mentioned here. We are looking at the sign of Emmanuel. Now, let us look at this part. Isaiah's son quick load first plunder as a sign to the people. So in chapter 8, when we read from verse 1 up to verse 4, chapter 8, we find another issue there. So let me read here. The Lord said to me, take a large piece of writing material and write on it in large letters, quick load fast plunder. Get two reliable men, the priest Uriah and Zechariah, son of Jeberechiah, to serve as witnesses. Sometime later, my wife became pregnant. When our son was born, the Lord said to me, name him Quick Load Fast Plunder. Before the boy is old enough to say mommy and daddy, all the wealth of Damascus and all the loot of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. So there is here Isaiah's son, quick loot fast plunder. So describe what God instructed Isaiah to do in this passage. So we see here, what did he say? Definitely, he said, take a large piece of writing material and write on it quick route, fast plunder. Now, get 2 reliable men, Uriah the priest and Zechariah, to serve as witnesses. So the witnesses were Uriah the priest and Zechariah. They were the witnesses. So what message did God give Isaiah to do in this passage? So God told Isaiah to name his son Quick Road Fast Plunder. Told him further that before the boy is old enough to say, Mommy, Daddy, all the wealth of Damascus and all the land of Samaria would be carried off by the king of Assyria. So we see here the message that came from God advising Isaiah what to do as a confirmation of God's intervention on Judah. What did quick route fast plunder refer? So it means the destruction or defeat of Assyrian Israel was just near, and therefore were not something to go by or fear. So the destruction of these two countries that threatened Judah were just imminent, they were near. It also means the liberation of Judah from war, or the protection of Judah, because here it shows that God himself intervened quickly. Who were the two witnesses? Uriah and Zechariah. We have read that one. And how did Isaiah make his prophecy real? How was he to put that prophecy real, to be solemn, to be a reality? So he put it in writing, not just in writing, but in large letters, in capital letters maybe. So it was attested by two witnesses. So it was written in capital letters or large letters. Number two, it was witnessed by two people. So there were two people present, Zechariah and Uriah. And he dedicated it to his own son, Quick Route Fast Plunder. So three things made this prophecy a reality: writing in large letters, presence of two witnesses, and dedicated the message to his son, Quick Route Fast Plunder. What was Ahaz's general reaction to Isaiah's prophecy? In all this, Ahaz did not believe. But how did Isaiah react to Ahaz's reaction to his prophecy? Because he gave him sure prophecy, but the king did not believe. So what was the response or reaction of Ahaz or Isaiah? He gave two signs that Syria and Israel would soon be defeated, that of Emmanuel and that of Quick Route Fast Plunder. So two signs there, sign of Emmanuel and another one, Quick Route Fast Plunder. He made his prophecy solemn, to say there were witnesses to the prophecies. And he announced disasters as yet another sign, and he withdrew from public ministry. So in all this, after making this prophecy, Isaiah finally withdrew from his prophecy. Now, in here, we have come to the end of our lesson today. And in this lesson, we are looking at the sign of Emmanuel. For sure, I know you have taken something from there, where we are reading from Isaiah chapter 7 from verse 15 to 25. So from there, we have seen what happened there. But here I have an exercise for you to do. So here I want you to understand the questions, try to write however you can write, and try to answer or give the response. So give the response, then you can give it to me in any way you can, then I'll give you the feedback on how you have responded to these questions. Remember, I've extracted these ones again from many past papers. So be sure of what we are doing, to say what we are doing is also what is coming during your examinations. So for further studies, please, you can also consult xulendo.org. This is where you get all this stuff for all other subjects. For any questions or any other thing related to your education, you can always WhatsApp and also consult the helpline on Xulendo. Listen to the voice of substance. Until next time, I'm your teacher, W.A. Mawowa. Thank you so much. Now, for further studies, you can also do as I did. You can consult these books. They have the references that they are the references that I'm doing, and you can also use them. There are so many pamphlets out there. You can also consult them.